it was nice for me to realize that our kind of oppression is more clear. You can really see it and you understand it. Whereas in Japan, or I don't know, in the West, it's much more invisible. You can't really see it. I mean, this is what I'm saying, that in Kuwait, if you talk about religious oppression or oppression from the state, everybody understands that. I also think about imperialism a lot, and I also think it's like wrong to escape and say that everything is America's fault or the West's fault or something. The agency to commit evil is also agency. This is what I try to think about. When everybody say, "Oh, you're political puppets of the West" and stuff like that, I say no. Everybody has their own agenda. Like after the oil crash, I think in '74, it was really like when oil really started to become a huge like income, and it was the kind of birth of the petrodollar, and yeah, and that really fueled like religious teaching. I mean, they've funded Gulf governments funded religious schools all over the world pertaining to one ideology of Islam, which is Wahhabism. And I think there's a direct correlation there between the economic power of oil and the kind of dissemination of this kind of religious ideology. I mean, recently I think about like history and culture a lot, and there is sometimes like an anthropological aspect to my work, and more it just feels like this history is like a fiction. Like my grandfather was a singer on a pearl diving boat, and that world that just existed like 60 years ago is like a fiction. How did that happen? It's because of oil. And people don't realize that this huge erasure also of history happened. They just use certain aspects of history to create this kind of national identity, which is also very, very new. And kind of real history is just like, gone. Or it's used like an advertisement, like pearl boats. There's like, come and see our heritage. It's like fake pearl diving boat, and like, it's like this big break, in history. And after that, all this modernization happened, and it's just like, where did history go? It just renders it into like entertainment. It's not part of who you are. We talk about this a lot in GCC, that states are trying to become more like corporations. It's like this conflation between corporate culture and the state. Governments are more and more using the language of business and how they promote themselves, how to brand Qatar. I mean, you can look at it historically, and obviously it's been done before in a much different way, but it's like, it's becoming more and more, I feel like, business-like. In the Gulf, anything to do with business is always in English. Like, even though it's in Arab, like, they have like a board meeting in Arabic, and everybody speaks Arabic, but all these words come out that are English, like fiscal responsibility, or whatever, like entrepreneurial, I don't know what.
The next station is Financial Center.
It seeps very much through the internet, like the way that the modern age is constructed. I mean, the internet is dominantly an English-speaking platform, and if you don't know a few words of English, you wouldn't really be able to use it, would you? So art and music is seen as like a corrupting thing that inspires like idolatry. It's like almost like imitating God. And but I'm always surprised that they actually create their own art forms. These extremist organizations. There's this kind of forms of like imagination and like creativity going on in there, and I find it really interesting that in that project especially that they painted these electric power stations. Painting is seen as the ultimate wrong thing to do for them, but they painted them, and it's figurative. Figurative art is seen as the most heinous crime. So it's like, well, how did this happen? When people usually talk about extremists, it's always denying their existence and negating them. But for me, I think it's much more important to try to understand where this comes from and how it came about and why it looks like this today. So because in this climate, you can't really deny images anymore, which is what I think that them as like kind of religious fanatics, they can't. So they're trying to compete with it, maybe in their own way. So there's all these contradictions that I'm kind of interested in. I think it's a very like idiosyncratic period in history. This is what happened to us in the past. I mean, I am writing this story right now as a kind of myth where the people of oil existed at this time and they were very wealthy sultans. It's like this mythological character, this corrupting, force that you can't really control, and it comes out in different ways. It's not really about oil running out. It's about oil becoming worthless again. you know? Yeah, it's really creating the future heritage now. I don't think people really understand it that way. They just think, oh, this is like a celebration of who we are right now. But for me, it's more about going down the line and after the catastrophe, what these things would mean.
اللهم إني أعوذ بك من وعثاء السفر وكآبة